This is the second generation of the Toyota MR2. It came in 3 generations. First generation came out in 1984, and it's a whole lot boxier and more squared off, smaller, and about 400 pounds lighter than this one right here.
Putting the fun back into driving. Introducing the Toyota MR2 sports car, a mid-engine 16-valve fuel-injected playmate designed for the kind of performance that says, "Look out, here I come." The Toyota MR2. So exciting, it just won Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year. The fun is back.
Right here. But today you're going to learn all about the Toyota MR2, what makes it wildly popular, what makes it at times wildly dangerous, and actually a whole lot of fun to drive. Now I know this is the Mustang garage, and normally there's only Mustangs parked here, but I had to have this vehicle because this is the vehicle I had imported from Japan for myself back in 06-07, and this is where I met Marie, my partner, more than just my partner on the channel, my partner. She's just an occasional drop-in on the channel, but I met her when I owned this. I had it imported from Japan. It is the 2-liter turbo, so lots of fun from the 3S GTE engine. So this is an SW20. And what is an MR2? Well, this MR2 is the MR2 that I bought back and is now back in my possession. But a Toyota MR2 is a midship runabout 2-seater. And in France and also here in Quebec, MR2 actually sounds a lot like merdeux ou merde, so poop. So in France, they actually just called it the MR. They dropped the 2 so that it wouldn't sound like a profanity. So every single MR2 has a 4-cylinder. Mind you, not all 4 cylinders are made equally. You have the 5 SFE, that has as low as 135 horsepower, so nothing special going on there, but do recall, these are very low weight vehicles. It's about 1,100 kilograms. I'll have to put that into pounds, but it's roughly about 2,600 pounds, so extremely light vehicles. Every single one of them has the engine in the back, and they're all 4 cylinders that are transversely mounted, so passenger, or in this case, passenger to driver, because the steering wheel is on the other side. It's on the right side because it's an imported vehicle from Japan. And well, this vehicle does not only have a long story, an important story for me personally, this also has a very nice race history. When it was racing against BMW M3s, Porsches, and Ferraris, it really could hold its own. And on the racing circuit,
MR2 絶妙なスタート。さあこのまま逃げろ。3速からフェラーリが伸びる。うわ追いつかれる。到着ゴール。
often went on to win, which is part of the reason why this has a really great resale. Well, no, not resale at this point, but it's got a really great value on the market. Recently, the prices on them have gone up, and I think they're truly going to continue to go up. Nothing like the Toyota Supra, and of course the Nissan R32 GT. Well, the Nissan GTR, it has an insane resale value. Because, well, back in the day, that thing won just about every race it partook in. So it has an incredible race history. This has a very solid race history. On certain racetracks, it could actually be faster than, well, like I said earlier, BMW, Porsche, and even the 308 Ferrari. So really cool. It's got those retro headlights that pop up. They were the bane of people's existence in the 2000s. So throughout the 2000s, these actually had relatively poor resale value. But if you think about it, originally these vehicles with the turbo played around $17,000 US. The more base models were about $4,000 less at $13,000 US. And well, in the mid 2000s, you could pick one of these up for about $4,000 or $5,000 US. Now values are going way up. It is hard to find a clean one, and in no way is this a clean one. You know, on the channel, we'll be having all sorts of polls in regards to getting your opinion on what to do for mags, what to do for repairs. But something I must mention that I really like about these MR2s is the round design. The disc brakes all around are effective unless you're just on the pedal, because, well, it seems like when you're hard on the pedal and the turbos are running at 10 psi, when you ask for brakes, there's not quite as much as I would like to have. Working on this, you know, the whole thought process behind this vehicle started, of course, in Japan at Toyota in 1976, and come 1984, they had a commercial model available for the market, the much boxier model.
Class by itself. Only one car can put together the power of a 16-valve engine with the styling and handling of a high-performance sports car. Only one car can be the MR2 from Toyota. See the incredible MR2 now at your Toyota dealer. The only place where you can get the car of your dreams at the price of a lifetime.
What will you do with all the money you save?
Model with less power, but 300 to 400 pounds less. Now, the really desirable model, the model you'll want to get if you're looking to shop for one of these vehicles, the ones that will truly increase in value in the years to come, are the models that doesn't have to be obviously a right-hand drive Japanese model, the SW20, but you're going to want to get the 3S GTE. You're going to want that 2-liter turbo. Now, the most coveted ones, of course, are near the end of the production timeline. So these were built as 1990 to 1999 models, and well, the later ones had a bit more horsepower because these were running in their earlier years. Like this is a 91. It would have originally had 200 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque at about 3,300 RPM. Now, this is the last generation of the 3S GTE turbo. It's from a 1997. It's a Japanese motor, imported. So luckily, it has a big whopping 242 horsepower. Thankfully, the vehicle is light, but I must say it is more exciting driving my Mustang GT when it comes to acceleration, and the cornering is predictable in my Mustang GT 2022. However, what's very interesting about this is that, well, it's not predictable. You have incredible go-kart driving.
CG open class, and they're becoming... Whoa! Oh, get a ticket to the drifting tonight, son. Lenny Slender. And,
until you get that snap oversteer. So incredible handling, incredible fun, and it just snaps into a very hellish, very scary scenario. It's actually, when I originally sold this vehicle, it was after having a bit of snap oversteer on the road. I did not end up in the ditch, but it was my deciding factor for selling this vehicle. But it's back in my life, and well, I'll be enjoying it, and I hopefully, you know, with subscribing to the channel, you won't miss out on any of the work that we do. Simple things that are going to be as simple as an oil change to, well, picking the color and repainting the entire vehicle, which is about $6,000 when done really, really well. And when this car is done, I want it to be near perfect. I don't want, you know, lights here falling off, rattles. This thing, I originally built this exhaust myself. It's a dual exhaust in the back, and I built it with a friend, and there's some of my welding and blood probably mixed in with that metal because I burnt myself doing it, but it does have an aftermarket downpipe. Mind you, the exhaust does bang on the rear cross member bar for the suspension. So it sounds like a rattly bucket of bolts.
Tires, because as you can see, this is wobbling all over the place. It thankfully doesn't need an engine. It doesn't need an exhaust. Has a nice little blow off. And is unbelievably low to the ground. Well, the acoustics aren't great in here, but I just wanted to show you a little drive with this thing. because, well, this will be the little project car that we slowly work on, and it has T-tops, so that's great. We're on the ground watching people's reactions to this horribly painted yet very rare car. At least in this area, this is awfully rare, and I'll try to not rattle out my teeth.
This vehicle has absolutely no rust underneath it, and that's how you want to shop yours. You're going to want to make sure that you get a pristine model. Do be aware that when you buy an older vehicle, you're going to be changing a lot on it. So this needs new shocks, it needs all new bushings. Obviously, air filter dates back to the last one I put in, and I think 2009 or 2010, so it's very much due. And if you do have the original turbo with one of these vehicles, you might be getting your turbo rebuilt, so do expect to spend $2,000–3,000 on having that turbo rebuilt. Thankfully, the engine comes from Japan. It's very low kilometers, about 71,000 kilometers, so I'll be good for quite some time until I have to work in the engine bay. The engine bay is extremely cramped, and something when you own one of these, you know, they've been named the poor man's Ferrari. I'd say it's the smart man's Ferrari, because the parts don't cost tens of thousands of dollars, and they're not impossible to find. They're near impossible to find, and well, the cost on them isn't bad. But to give you an example, changing the timing belt on this vehicle can take 7 to 8 hours. So if you're paying someone $100 an hour to change that timing belt, you either need a lot of time and no YouTube channel, because when you have a YouTube channel, your free time, unless you're a full-time YouTuber, you don't have 7 to 8 hours to change a timing belt. So I do expect to be paying 7 to 8 hours to do that timing belt. It's extremely cramped in the engine bay. So really doing anything on the motor, it's almost easier taking the entire motor out and working on things. Let's take a look at the condition of this vehicle. This was an original GT, so the GT model was the model that was considered the luxury model. So you get suede on the doors. Unfortunately, some numbskull, me, back in the day, my younger days, I took out the original seats, which were originally leather and suede. They looked amazing. They matched the doors, but something you're going to want to look out for if you're shopping for one of these is make sure that your dash isn't cracked. They're near impossible. Actually, I've yet to find an available dash other than just buying a whole other vehicle with, let's say, blown mechanics. But this vehicle is going to need love. I'm going to be asking the help from the community in regards to seats. I have located currently with wet pants, because I have located where the water comes in from. It's not the T-tops, it's actually the door sill, which are still findable. And comically enough, I'm currently on the left side of the vehicle, which is where your passenger will go. So definitely if you have one of these in North America and you're passing people, you're going to want to really watch out. So as the driver on the right side, you're probably going to be spending a lot of time putting your head over here on the left side to pass people, because you need to watch out when you're doing that. But this is definitely my old vehicle. Pretty obvious. Other than getting free gum, I also got my old Costco card back. So that's me right there, back in about 2007. Proof that I had this vehicle back in 2007. And well, I used to like to go to the aquatic park and the ski park in my local area. So there's a photo of me back from 2009. So definitely my vehicle. Let's just show you what's going on in here. So there will be a lot of cleaning going on. I've got to redo the trim here. You got the original dashes. So don't expect to find one of these in perfect condition. If you do, you're going to be spending about $25,000 to $30,000 Canadian. And well, if you don't, you're going to have to put in a good amount of work. So now we're at the real business end of the vehicle, the engine bay. So not all 4-cylinders are built equally, and this is especially true in the case of the Toyota MR2. If this was a 3SGE, so be warned, don't be fooled. 3SGE does not have a turbo, and that has about 100, depending on the year. It plays around 163 horsepower, and well, the torque isn't all that impressive either. Now, it will still drive like a go-kart. You're gonna have fun in the corners, but it's not gonna be the really collectible model. To really have the collectible model, you need the 3S GTE. Now, thankfully, I've got one of the motors imported one of the last years this was built. So instead of 200 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque, it has 243 horsepower. And well, just a little bit more torque than that. So in the earlier years, it was definitely playing with less. At the end, Toyota decided to give us a little bit more to make it a little bit more special. And that's true really of most automobile manufacturers. As a model gets a little long in the tooth, they tend to add a little more power. If you look at the Coyote 5-liter on the Mustang in 2011 and 2012, that was coming with 412 horsepower. And well, for 2021, they had that up to 460 horsepower. And in certain models, 480 horsepower. So definitely always a benefit to getting a model near the end of the production. All the bugs are worked out. So this is a 91. It had 1990 to work out, a few bugs, but these are actually really reliable vehicles. Now, of course, when you're dealing with anything that's 30 years old, you gotta be ready to change some parts. You can't spend your entire budget on just the vehicle and then not have money for parts. So this already has a brand new battery. That's pretty standard. I'm starting to think that I'm probably gonna need an alternator, so I'm gonna be watching on how this, if it loses charge. But these are motors that you can play around with a bit. I've got a blow off here. In the trunk behind the carpeting, there's a computer system, Lynx G4, and well, it's gonna allow me to completely have this tuned on a dyno. And you can safely make 300 horsepower with these machines. And do recall, they are very, very light, so they are a blast to drive. Now, one thing you definitely want to avoid is getting one of these imported from Europe with the 3SFE engine, because that was only producing 138 horsepower. So really, normally would say that's incredibly anemic, but in the case of, an 1100 kilogram vehicle, about 2,600 pounds, it'll still be fun. It'll still be a go-kart. Obviously, when I want to go fast in a straight line, there are other vehicles for doing that, but these are definitely worth collecting. They are going up in value. It is hard to get one that hasn't been toyed around too much with, so this has a completely swapped exhaust. It has a non-original oversized intercooler with oversized intercooling piping, and in the front, well, the front's interesting as well because there's actually a very large oil transmission cooler. So you can sometimes get these that have been nicely modified. Now, thankfully, this motor coming out of the vehicle, the motor itself was completely bone stock and was now added to these extra performance parts. So obviously, this vehicle needs to be tuned in any time you're doing a 3S GTE last generation into, let's say, a 91 or 92. So that would be the 94 plus motors. When you're dropping them in, they do need to be tuned. And at one point, for a Toyota, there were rumors that for this model, there would be a 6-cylinder engine. And of course, some people speculated that would only be offered over on the Lexus side of things, because the Lexus, it would be all right if it had a 6-cylinder and that they'd leave the 4-cylinder for the Toyota, but it never happened. But I have had the 3-liter V6 in one of my old MR2s. And well, with a 6-cylinder, that was actually pretty fun to drive. The sound, that was a motor that came out of, well, actually it came out of a Camry, but you could find it in models of Lexus. You could even find it in a truck or two over at Toyota, and it created and offered an incredible sound with the modified exhaust, and it gave for some very interesting driving dynamics. Mind you, having more weight back here isn't good for that snap oversteer. So these are great vehicles. You do need to know how to drive them. You do need to be careful, and you should only ever push them to their limit on a track that has space to go off of the track. So don't push these on the main roads. They're not safe for that at all with snap oversteer unless you're a professional driver. So some interesting aspects of the 3S GTE models, when of course it's an original 3S GTE, which this is that it had twin piston front caliper brakes. The regular MR2s only had single piston front caliper brakes. They were never all that fast. The 3S GTE with the 200 horsepower engine could go 0 to 60 miles per hour or 97 kilometers an hour in 6.1 seconds. So by modern day standards, that's not that fast. A Ford Maverick EcoBoost 2-liter, it's a truck, the Ford Maverick. It's faster than this vehicle, but back in those days, this vehicle was fast. And you don't have to have the fastest vehicle on the block to have fun. You can enjoy having a nice, very collectible car and drive around nicely and politely. And if you do modify them, well then you can take them to the racetrack on the weekend.
Open class, and they're becoming. Whoa! Get a ticket to the drifting tonight, son. Woo!
Now, originally the SW20, so that's the second generation of the MR2, on the skid pad, if you do take it to the racetrack and you're on the original tiny little tires, you can expect to get 0.89 Gs on the skid pad. Now later on, they got it as high as 0.94. That was a combination of bigger, better tires, better mags, and of course the LSD differential in the later years, which started in 1990. For the 94 and on model, they had them. And if it was offered in the 93, I'll just have to correct that. But the LSD definitely is something that also might be on your watch list if you're shopping around for one. If you find that there's not much of a difference between, let's say, a 94 that you find and a 92, go with the 94. It has the limited slip differential, and you're gonna like that, and it will help with the handling of the vehicle. So the reason in this video I've been talking so much about the 3S GTE engine and how this is the last generation of it, so it's a 97 engine, is because of how impressive it is with the weight of this vehicle. And I mean impressive for the 1990s, because in a quarter mile, this would do the quarter mile in 13.1 seconds, which actually beat out the Toyota Supra. You could say the Toyota Supra is the big brother of this. One way or another, it's the very expensive collectible to get. This is inexpensive compared to a Toyota Supra. If you're looking at the last generation of Supra, you know, from the 90s, 80s Supras, very purchasable, very affordable. But it also beat out the Acura NSX and even the 348 TB Ferrari. Yes, a Ferrari 348 TB. This is faster in a quarter mile. And unlike the Ferrari, you can actually have fun modifying one of these. Now, if you do modify it, of course, do keep all your original parts. I unfortunately am the one that put those racing seats back in 08 or 09 in the vehicle, and I do not know what happened to the original seats. You can still get them, but they're the actual same price as full leather, high-end Brom leather seats. Or Recaros, for example, or Sparco, whatever mark you like. Well, you're gonna pay the original seats on these. If you want the leather and suede ones, you will pay a pretty penny. So just a side note, anything you take off a vehicle that's going up in value, make sure to have the space to store them. Well, that has been my review of the vehicle. The walk around of a Toyota MR2. Of course, there'll be drive-alongs, and there'll also be videos on the parts we change on this vehicle. Do like and subscribe, and in subscribing, and especially if you become a member, well then you'll have a lot of polls. You'll get to really direct the direction of the channel, what modifications get picked. So I look forward to hearing from you. In the meantime, I do wish you all more cars and more power. If it's your thing, I hope you get to put the pedal to the metal, and until next time, take care.